Welcome back to our social studies lesson. We are working on community economics, and last week we finished the first 5 lessons. And I just want to kind of review what it was that we talked about in those 5 lessons. The first lesson that we talked about last week was jobs. And in jobs, we learned that a community has many different types of jobs, and that people get jobs to pay for things that they want and they need. And then in our second lesson, we talked about income, and that we defined income as the money that people earn from working. And that money can be used to buy things that people need, but it can also be used to buy things that people um, want. Okay. But we also learned that we don't have to spend all of our money. We can use our money to buy those things that we need: food, shelter, and clothing. And then we can also save some of that money for the things that we might want to purchase that we want, like a video game, or a puppy, or a vacation. Okay. In our third lesson, we talked about wants and needs. And needs are those things that you need to survive. You need to have food, you need to have water, you need to have clothing, you need to have shelter and air to survive. Now, we don't necessarily pay for air. In some of our communities, we do pay for water, but we also know that we need to purchase clothing and shelter and food in order to survive. Wants are things that make our lives a little bit nicer or a little bit more enjoyable, such as those vacations or video games or computers or telephones. All right. In lesson 4, we talked about goods and services. Remember, we talked about goods being those tangible things, those things that we touch. They're the things that we consume. I use those things, so that they are things that we buy and then we use. They can be both a want or a need. All right. Goods can be both a want or a need. For example, if it's a want, it's that video game or that vacation. If it's a need, it's that food, it's that clothing, it's that shelter. And then we talked about services, and services are work done by someone else to help another person. Okay. It's an action or a skill. It's not a physical item like food or a video game. It could be something like going to the dentist. It could be going to the barber shop. It could be someone who comes and mows your lawn. Those would be services. And then the last thing we talked about last week were natural resources. And these are things that are found in nature: plants, air, water, soil are natural resources, and they help us to meet our basic needs. Okay. They can also, those natural resources can also be used to make goods. For example, corn is a plant. It is a, a natural resource, but it can be made into the can of corn that you see in your grocery store, or the frozen corn that you see in your grocery store. Today, we are going to talk about producers and consumers. And this is where I'm going to, since I'm not in the classroom anymore, have to be a little creative. And so you're going to see just a little bit of me and a lot of the screen. So you need to find your book on producers and consumers, and I will pull that up on the screen as well. Didn't work. Better share the screen.
Where?
The green thing. Oh. Well, that was fun. Thank goodness Miss Molly's here to help me. All righty. So today's lesson is producers and consumers. All right. And let's go back one. We have to go back a lot. Okay. So today's lesson is producers and consumers. We are going to explain what it means to be a producer and a consumer. So at the end of the lesson, you should be able to tell me what a producer is and what a consumer is. And we're going to use the book, We Are Producers and Consumers. If you had $20, what would you buy? Right now, if I had $20 and I could find it in the store, I would probably buy some toilet paper. I don't know about you. What are some things that you would buy? Share with a friend who's sitting somewhere near you at home. What are some things that you would buy if you had $20? Would you buy goods like a new toy, a game, or clothes? Would you buy a service like a haircut or go and see a show? People who buy and use goods and services are called consumers. So that's important. There's your definition of a consumer right there. People who buy and use goods and services are called consumers. See how I'm going back into the text to find my evidence. Consumers pay money that they have earned to use a service or obtain a good. So now that explains to us why we have jobs, why we have to earn that income, because we need that income to buy either a service or a good. When you buy lunch, you are a consumer. When you go to a movie, you are a consumer. When you buy a present for a friend, you are a consumer. People who make a good or provide a service are called producers. So there again, right in the first sentence, I'm finding out what a producer is. People who make a good or provide a service are called producers. This is because they are producing. Producing is a fancy word for making. So they are producers because they are producing or making something. They are creating a good for people to buy, or they are performing a service that will help people. So that's important to know. Okay. Producers create things. They create a good for people to buy, or they perform a service that will help people. Factory workers are producers because they make goods. Bakers are producers because they bake foods. Mail carriers are producers because they provide a service. They deliver your mail. So your mail carrier who brings the mail to your house every day is a producer because he's providing a service. He's delivering the mail to your house. Okay, producers make the good or service, and consumers buy the good or use the service. So right here, the baker is the producer. What is he producing or making? He's making bread, which is a good. And the consumer, lady right here, purchased his bread, all right, and used it to make a sandwich. So producers make the good or service, consumers buy the good or use the service. Here's another, it's a chef. All right, Mia and her family go to a restaurant. The chef makes their food. The chef is the producer because she's making the food. Mia and her family are the consumers. They are buying and eating the food that Mia produced in her restaurant. So producers make the good or service. Consumers buy and use the product that was made by the producer. Many people in their day-to-day life are both producers and consumers. Jose is a barber. He is a producer because he provides a service to people when he cuts their hair. Jose also needs food to eat and clothes to wear. When he goes shopping to buy goods like food or clothing, he becomes a consumer. So in his shop, he is a producer because he's providing a service. When he goes to the grocery store or to the mall, he's a consumer because he's purchasing things that he needs to survive, food and clothing. Consumers have to make smart decisions about what they will spend their money on. Since money is limited, people cannot buy everything they want. Most consumers spend money on their needs first, like food, clothing, and shelter. Extra money that they have goes towards their wants. Both people are both producers and consumers. Producers and consumers help our economy run smoothly. They help put people to work to earn income so they can purchase wants and needs. Okay, so that's important. Producers and consumers help our economy run smoothly. And the reason is they help put people to work to earn that income that they need so that they can purchase wants and needs. So now we're going to look at some cards and decide if the person or people are acting as producers or consumers. And remember, producers makes and sells things. Consumers buy and use goods and services. So a consumer is someone who buys and uses goods and services, and a producer is the person that makes and sells things. Okay, Samara and Jade are riding their new bikes. Are they producers or consumers? They are consumers because they bought their bikes. Mrs. Harris bought a new book for her class. Is she a producer or is she a consumer? That's right, she's a consumer because she bought the good. The Jones family is eating dinner made with food they bought from the grocery store. The clue word here is bought, so they are consumers. John's dad bought him a new shirt for the first day of school. There you go again, there's that word bought. So that tells us that John's dad is a consumer. Angie is a mechanic who fixes cars in her garage. Is she making and selling things, or is she delivering a service to someone? That's right, she's a producer. Mr. McMurray's cows produce milk that he sells to the grocery stores. Is he a producer or a consumer? That's right, he is a producer. Maria is a baker and sells breads and pastries at her bakery. She's making the bread and then she's selling it, so she is a producer. Tyrell welds steel beams that will be used to build skyscrapers. He's a producer. Now, when the lesson is finished, you will find this activity page attached to the lesson. So be sure that if you're able to, you go ahead and print it off and complete it. If you are not able to print it, you could try what Mia's family is doing it, saving it to images and then opening it in printer, and in Paint and completing it that way. And if you don't have the ability to do either of those things, then go ahead and replicate it in your social studies interactive notebook. Today, we learn that a producer makes and sells things, and that a consumer buys and uses goods and services, and that you and I can be both producers and consumers. See you tomorrow.